Hello everyone, and welcome back to EduTap. So, guys, we are here for another session for NABARD Grade A Phase 2 Descriptive English, and today we will be looking at Pressy writing, which is a very very unique kind of composition, and it is very commonly asked in these competitive exams, specifically for your regulatory body exams. So, guys, if you can hear me and if you can see me, give me a thumbs up in the chat box or kindly acknowledge so that I know that I'm clear and everything is visible and audible to you. Good evening, Pankaj. So, how are the preparations going on, guys? I hope everything is going well. So, guys, don't forget to like the session. We are doing so much for you, and we are doing it just for your sake. So, the least you can do is like the session and share it with with your peers, so that anyone who needs it may find it out here. Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you for that. Thank you for the confirmation. So, guys, today we will be learning about Pressy writing, right? So, first of all, we would be understanding what Pressy is all about, then what are the do's and don'ts of a Pressy, how to frame a Pressy, what is the difference between a Pressy and a summary, and then I'll also discuss a few sample Pressys with you, previous year Pressy as well as some sample Pressy there. So let us begin, guys. But before we begin, I would like to inform you about our one-time sale, and we are offering flat 48% discount on all our combo courses for RBI, NABARD, SEBI, and PFRDA. And today is the last day for that sale, and the coupon code is one time, so 48% off. So that's a huge sale if you are thinking of preparing for any of these exams. I think this is the right time you can opt for it. Good evening, lovely. Welcome to the session. So, guys, we would be learning Pressy writing today, and Pressy writing is a very unique kind of composition in itself, right? So, we will learn about that. So, let us begin by first of all understanding. So, you will get 3 questions, 1 essay. We covered that a couple of days ago. Today, we will be covering Pressy writing, and I think yesterday and day before yesterday we covered letter writing and report writing, right? So that is the important part that we must be looking into, that what Pressy writing is, and how do we compose a Pressy, right? So we will learn all that. So let us begin, guys. First of all, let's begin with the definition of a Pressy. First of all, a definition or the definition of the Pressy should be completely clear, absolutely clear in your head. So let me put it to you in this way. A Pressy, guys, please read it carefully. A Pressy is a clear, compact, condensed brief of a passage. So what I mean by this is, a Pressy is a clear, compact, so every word has some meaning to it. So what I mean by clear is, it is in the same terms, it is in the same language as is the original passage. Compact is the size, it is supposed to be within a specific word limit, and condensed is where you pack a lot of information into it, right? Analyzed and inferred information. So a Pressy is basically a clear, compact, condensed brief of a passage by exclusion of unimportant text. See, guys, you have to understand, exclusion of unimportant, reiterated, or the text which is not important for the for the whole highlighting the whole passage. So excluding that, and filtration of key points in the writer's own words. So there are many things that are of importance in this definition. First is, a Pressy is a clear, compact, condensed brief of a passage where you exclude any superfluous data, any unimportant text, and you filter only the important points and you present them in your own words. Now that is called a Pressy. See, guys, the point is, Pressy writing is regarded as a very important kind of composition because it develops one's capacity to discriminate between the essential and the non-essential. So that is what they want to see, if you can understand the passage and can you discriminate between the essential and the non-essential. So that is what Pressy writing is all about. So when you are thinking of writing a Pressy, there are a few points that you must understand. First of all, guys, you need to plan, or you need to outline the original passage or article. What I mean by outline or plan is, let's say the article was for 600 words and you have to make a Pressy for 170 words. That means you have to almost bring it down to 1/3 or 1/4 of the original passage, right? And bringing it down to 1/3 or 1/4 doesn't mean that you just have to shorten the sentences. Now that is what most of the students think, that Pressy writing is bringing the original passage to 1/3 of its length by connecting the sentences. That is not true. Pressy writing is something very different altogether, guys. See, you're talking about summary here. Now summary is it's similar to Pressy, but it is not Pressy. And what we have been taught in the name of Pressy since we were kids is actually summary. Summary is where we basically try to pack as much information into the sentences as possible, and we try to explain the key points in the with by collating different sentences into one another. So that is called a summary. But Pressy is an original understanding, your own presentation of the understanding or the inference of the passage. Now that is called a Pressy. So what I mean by plan or outline the original passage is that you need to understand, if you have to bring down the passage to 1/3 or 1/4 of its length, you need to figure out that let's say you have 8 paragraphs in the passage, and at least one point from every paragraph will be taken to frame a sentence, let's say, right? And if we know that the limit for Pressy is 170 words, so on an average we as human beings write 12 to 15 words per sentence on an average, right? So let's say 12 words per per sentence is the average. So let's say, so that means we have to write about 15 sentences. So out of those 15 sentences, first couple of sentences and last sentence is for introduction and conclusion. That means you have around 10 to 12 sentences to highlight the whole passage. So that is what I'm talking about. So you need to plan it, that I have 8 paragraphs and I have 10 sentences to discuss every important point of this passage. So in those 12 sentences, how am I going to elaborate those, and how am I going to collate those key points to bring it down to 10 to 12 sentences and to create an original passage or original paragraph. So first of all, you need to understand, you need to plan or outline the original passage. Then you must remember, you only have to keep the abstract of the passage. So guys, I would like to ask you, do you know the meaning of the word abstract? What is abstract? See, abstract has basically two meanings. So see, one is abstract is names of feelings, right? Emotions like happiness. Happiness is an abstract word. Sadness, kindness, brotherhood, mankind, society, right? Love, anger, joy. Now these are abstract words, names of feelings. And there is another meaning of the word abstract is, you squeeze something, and whatever you get out of it, the residue, that is called a Pressy. So what I mean by keeping the abstract of the passage is, you only have to keep the soul of the passage, your understanding of the passage. So keep only the abstract of the passage. You don't need to highlight each and everything of importance from the passage. You need to highlight the central theme and the key points of the passage. That is what a Pressy is all about, and we will discuss this in discuss this in more detail. So selection of the most prominent sentences, most prominent phrases, that is very important, and then forming a chain of facts and connecting them to make an organic whole. That is what is Pressy is all about. See guys, I can teach you countless things about Pressy writing, but unless you really understand what Pressy is, it would be impossible for you to pick it out. So see, I'll give you an example. We've all heard that story, remember, the rabbit and the tortoise. So if I ask you to summarize that story into, or maybe make a Pressy of that story into 5 sentences. So see, there is a subtle difference between a summary and a Pressy. What summary will do is, summary will keep short sentences, but it will keep on collating points to frame the whole story into a short condensed version. That is called a summary, right? It would be exactly collation and picking out all the highlighted points or all the points of the passage. Whereas Pressy on the other hand would be keeping only the brief, the shortened version in your own words. That once an arrogant rabbit challenged a tortoise, a humble tortoise, asking for a race, and he agreed. So on the day of the race, the humble tortoise overtook the rabbit when the rabbit took a nap, being boisterous and thinking that that tortoise could never win. And finally winning the race, the tortoise proved to everyone that slow and steady wins the race. So what I tried here was giving out the whole story, the whole, this, the crux, the gist of the whole passage, whole story into 4 sentences, 5 sentences. So in your own way of presentation, see, it was not clearly mentioned in the passage that the rabbit was arrogant or the tortoise was humble. But after understanding and after reading the passage, this is what I can make out. That rabbit was obviously arrogant. I was very, boisterous. He was boastering about his speed, and he challenged that. That is why he challenged the turtle, and turtle finally took the challenge and won the race, and then proved what is the moral of the story. So basically, finding out the moral of the story is called finding out the or framing the Pressy. So what you need to do when you are making a Pressy is you need to find the inherent meaning, the purpose of the author to write that passage. That is called a Pressy. And when you present that purpose of the author in your own words, now that is what we call an original Pressy. See guys, if you go out there and make a summary, right, you will get marks, but you will get an average score, and with an average score you cannot expect to be in the top 0.1 percentile. So what we are doing here is we are learning the right way of presentation. So if you want to stand out, if you want to score really high, this is what you need to start practicing from now on. How to make a Pressy and how to practice it, I'll tell you that as well. See, every morning I'm sure you must be in the habit of reading editorials, not newspapers. Newspaper headlines are different, but editorials, the ones that are given in the middle of the newspaper. So every day what you can do is read one editorial. While you are reading it, take a pencil, mark down the key points as you read, and then after you've read the whole editorial, keep it aside for some time, probably 15-20 minutes, half an hour or so that you forget the details, the specifics, and then come back and sit on a computer and then type down whatever you remember from the editorial. That crux. Guys, am I audible to everyone? I think there was a power cut, sudden power cut at my end. Guys, could you acknowledge if I'm audible to you? Yes, Pankaj, absolutely. The gist, that is called the abstract. So when we are creating an abstract, we must remember that abstract is basically, जिसको हम हिंदी में निचोड़ बोलते हैं किसी चीज का, निचोड़ के पढ़ के हमें क्या निचोड़ मिला है उसका, what is the moral of that particular editorial. Whatever you read, whatever you understand, whatever you comprehend, whatever you infer, and when you present it in your own words in a short paragraph, that is called a Pressy, right? So these are that was a definition and how to form a Pressy. Now what are the key points of a Pressy? That let's discuss that. First of all, see, you have to see your Pressy should look like something like this. If I'm not very good at this, but let me just show you what the structure of your Pressy should be. So on the top of the Pressy should be your title, the first short, crisp, the first line of your Pressy should be the title that you are going to give your Pressy. And after that, guys, remember, from the next line, from the very left, you have to write your Pressy within one paragraph. So see, I told you essay has to be written in different paragraphs, but Pressy on the other hand is written only in one paragraph. You do not change paragraphs in a Pressy. So Pressy is basically, the proper structure of a Pressy is title on the top and Pressy in one paragraph. So if you understand that, that will make it very easy for you to remember and present your articulation, present your draft. So remember that title on the top, and after that the whole paragraph in one paragraph, that would be your Pressy. That is the fixed title of a Pressy. As I told you, there is a specific structure to a report that we learned yesterday. There is a specific structure to a letter. There is a specific structure to an essay. right? We cannot use bullet points, numbers in an essay. We cannot use bullet points, numbers in a letter. Similarly, we can use bullet points in a report, but similarly in Pressy you cannot use bullet points. So Pressy is always written in one paragraph with the title on the top. So I hope you remember that. So first of all, the crux or the gist of the passage is the title. So see guys, you read newspapers every day, you see newspaper headlines every day. So you have to give it an apt title after reading the passage. So whatever is the crux, and when you put it in, as limited words as possible, that is called a good title. For example, I'll give you an example. In the passage, the author has discussed what has been the state of Indian agriculture in the past 70, or let's say past 50 years, and in the last 20 years what change it has observed. Then what are the schemes that were launched and that have been launched by the government, what other measures have been taken by the stakeholders in this, then what are the new measures that are to be implemented. So all that was discussed. So if I have to give this passage a title, so I have to be very general and very holistic in my title, that agriculture, the backbone of India, or the emergence of or let's say the overhaul of agrarian economy of the country. So when you give it a title, it should be apt, it should highlight the whole passage. So the first thing in your Pressy should be the title, and the title should be the whole crux or the gist of the passage, right? Then something that you need to remember, you cannot replicate sentences from the passage. You cannot replace the sentences. So don't replicate important sentences just for the sake of highlighting that particular point. See, once you have written something, it is there, so you cannot replicate or you cannot copy sentences from the passage. So guys, please understand that you cannot use the words of the passage as they are, because when your Pressy will be evaluated, this will definitely is looked into every time if the student has copied one part of the sentence as it is. So see guys, you cannot change the basics, right? For example, if RBI has there is given RBI has allocated 10,000 crore rupees to NABARD, right? So you cannot change RBI and NABARD, or you cannot change 10,000 crore rupees. What you can change is the way of presentation, right? For example, a monetary fringe benefit of 10,000 crores has been allocated to NABARD by the RBI. So I'm saying the same thing, but the presentation is different. So this is what they are looking for. So this is what you need to understand. When you are framing a Pressy, you cannot replicate sentences from the passage, or you cannot replicate or copy and paste couple of words as they are from the passage. Certain words obviously would be there, but if you keep on copying words, it would lead to deduction of marks and poor presentation. So at any cost, avoid replication of important sentences, then have brevity and clarity. That means it should be relevant. I mean, it should be to the point, and it should be clear to understand what we are what we are conveying through our Pressy. So it should be on the terms of the passage itself. Then avoid direct speech, use indirect or passive speech. So that is a very good way of changing the way of presentation. So see, there are sometimes we feel, sir, is it possible every time to change a sentence? So if you think that it is not possible, use passive, it would become a different sentence. For example, if there's a sentence given, the government has announced a slew of measures for the rural economy in the upcoming budget, right? So if I'm writing the sentence as it is, it would be copying and pasting. So what you do is use indirect speech or passive sentences, that a momentous decision of monetary allocation to the rural economy has been decided or has been attributed by the central authorities, or whatever you want to convey, right? So basically what you are saying is you just need to present the same thing but in your own words. There should be originality in your Pressy. It cannot be copying and pasting. Another thing that you need to remember is you have to exclude any statistical information that would be there in the passage, because if you start using those data, statistics, numbers, it won't be a Pressy at all. Then you would be trying to fit everything into the Pressy. You should exclude any specific data, any number, any statistics that is given in the passage. See, we use statistics to strengthen our thesis. See, if I say a lot of people are dependent on agriculture sector, and if I give a number that according to this agency in 2021, 63% of the Indian population was directly or indirectly dependent on agrarian economy. So this statistics is the explanation of my previous point. So exclude information, keep the point. So that is what you need to understand. Exclusion of statistical information is very, very important, right? Then next is observe proportion. As I told you, you have to plan before you execute your Pressy. See, as I told you, if you have 10, 12 sentences, 15 sentences to write, you need to plan that I have, couple of sentences for introduction, then one sentence for conclusion, then I'm left with 10 sentences. So in 10 sentences, I have to highlight these 12 points, 8 points, 9 points. So I will, assign one sentence to each of them, and I will collate these points and put them together. Right. So you have to plan it. So observe proportion, so that, so what happens is students usually end up explaining one key point very elaboratively, and then they are left with no space to discuss the other important points. So that is what I mean by observing proportion. So enough, ample space should be there to discuss all the points equally in the passage, right? So that should be your aim. And 1/3 of the original passage or the word limit that has been mentioned in the paper is to be strictly mentioned in a Pressy. In Pressy, you cannot exceed the word limit, guys, because if you do, there will be deduction of marks. So see, as I've always told you, couple of words here and there, perfectly all right. But in a Pressy, if you exceed the word limit, it would lead to a poor presentation or poor execution of your Pressy. So do not exceed the word limit. If it says 170, finish it before 170 or as close to 170 as possible. Anything between 160 to 170 or 155 to 170 should be your aim, right? So following word limit in a Pressy is very, very important, and there are certain points that you must remember, that it should not have a replication, right? It should not be it should not include any specific statistical or database information. It should have proportion, and it should be abstract in original words of the author. It should be in your words, your own presentation. It should not be in the way it is presented in the passage. So now I'll show you the difference between I'll first of all discuss the do's and don'ts of a Pressy. Then I'll discuss with you the difference between a Pressy and a summary, right? So what are the do's and don'ts of a Pressy, guys? Remember, start the Pressy. Please note this very, very carefully. Start the Pressy with the main idea. So many students ask me, sir, how should we open the Pressy? How should we begin the Pressy? I told you the first, first you have to write a title. Then the first sentence of the Pressy should be the main idea, the key idea. Let's say the example I gave you, where we were discussing about the agriculture sector of the country from the past to the present and what is the future. So if I understand this, the passage talks about agriculture sector. So I'll start my Pressy with the way that prevalently or predominantly India has been an agrarian economy, and it is still going on, right? Or the culture follows, or the tradition is still being followed. But the point is, the agricultural sector is not very productive. The contribution is very low in the GDP compared to other sectors, right? So I have to put the whole point in one sentence. So I'll open it that India has been an agrarian economy predominantly, but due to the unproductive aspect or unproductive essence of this economy, India, or Indian authorities or the stakeholders or the central government needs to pay a lot more attention in this particular area. So I start with the Pressy with the central theme of the whole passage. So guys, start the Pressy with the main idea, so that the reader, that means the evaluator, can quickly understand the essence of the Pressy. That means he should be able to figure out whatever has been discussed in the Pressy from the first sentence itself, right? Then while writing a Pressy, make a suitable environment where all the points can be described and discussed equally. That was what I meant by observing proportion. So if you observe proportion, you will be able to make enough room for all the points. Now, as a Pressy is concise, compress it by using connecting words and make sure that space is available to retain the important data, keywords and concepts. So try to collate points, try to connect sentences with using conjunctions like however, unfortunately, therefore, consequently, subsequently, nonetheless, either or, neither nor, right? So, hence, also, therefore. So use these words to convey your understanding, and these will help you to connect sentences. So compress it by using connecting words so that you are able to highlight all the important points. Removing, see, this is important, guys. Removing the irrelevant data or sentence is as important as writing the relevant points. So identify the superfluous data and facts and keep the core idea of the work only in the Pressy. And I'll give you a very good trick, guys. If you're in a habit of reading newspapers or editorials, see, it's a very simple trick that if you understand this, this will help you in many ways. See, when do we change paragraphs? See, we change paragraphs when we are writing something, when we want to discuss something new, when we want to add a new aspect or new dimension to the discussion, right? So, and this is a rule, this is basically, you know, an unsaid kind of norm, that every paragraph, when it begins, every new paragraph, the first sentence of the paragraph should be, the first or second sentence of the paragraph should discuss the key point, the core point of that particular paragraph. So, you know, it's a very good thing if you just keep on reading the first and second sentences of all the paragraphs. Those are the key points, the core points of those paragraphs, and the rest of the paragraph is mostly only elaborated, or the superfluous data, or the you know, whatever has been conveyed in the in the beginning of the paragraph, that is elaborated and discussed in the further part of the paragraph. So there's a very good trick that if you just focus on the first and second sentence of every paragraph, you will get the key points, all the important points of the whole passage from the top to the bottom, right? And after that you can understand and you can ask yourself which are the most important. I think there is this again. Um, it's not. Guys, am I audible? I know it's irritating to ask again and again, but I hope that you are able to hear me. So basically, uh, see, guys, in a Pressy, what you need to look into is, you know, understanding the key points of the whole passage and then presenting them in your own way of understanding, in your own you know, in your own you know, how should I put it? See, I'll try to put it in you know, in a simple example. Let's say you have a younger brother or a younger sister, right? And they bring to you a you know, an editorial from a newspaper, and they ask you to read that and then explain that you know, that editorial to them. So what you do is you quickly read the passage, you get the essence of the whole you know, the editorial, the passage that is at hand, and then you understand it and then you convey it in layman terms, in a different way. See, you'll not be saying the same thing you know, word to word as given in the editorial, right? So you will read it and then you will break it down to make it simpler to understand for your younger brother or your younger sister, right? So that is called a Pressy basically. So to remove superfluous data, and as I told you, the first couple of sentences from every paragraph are the key points of the of those paragraphs. So if you just keep focus, if you stay focused on those points, I think you will get the whole idea of the passage very quickly, very easily, and you can then reframe those sentences in your own words. Next point to remember is you cannot add any personal opinions, any remarks or criticism in a Pressy. See, I have seen students doing that. I remember there was a passage about the farmers' protest, right? About the three farm laws, which was there in 2020, 2021. So there was a passage and there was a statement given: the government has decided to amend the laws and provide better facilities to the farmers. On the other hand, the student who made the Pressy, he wrote, the government should take necessary measures and improve the status of the farmers. So government has decided and government should. These are two very different things. So government should do this, that is your opinion. Government has done this, that is a fact. So you cannot change facts into opinions or remarks or any criticism. So make sure that you do not add anything on your own. You do not add any personal opinion, any remark, anything that is not relevant to the passage is not to be added in the Pressy, guys. Remember that. Now always take the fact and data that is given in the passage or the paragraph only. That means whatever you are going to discuss in the Pressy should be a fact from the passage. It should be relevant. It should be present in the passage. It should be discussed in the passage. Now it can be inferred from the passage, but it should not be something that is not even there. Right. So I'll give you an example. For example, the passage was about COVID-19, right? And it was about the global impact of COVID-19. There was no mention of India. But in the Pressy, if you mention that the Indian government took a bold step to to impose a lockdown throughout the country, right? So that is wrong, because that may be true, but it is not given in the context of the passage. Now what you can infer is, let's say there was a statement that the first case was detected in November 2019, and by January the number of cases rose to 10 million. So what you can infer is that COVID-19 from the beginning was a very was an epidemic for the world, and then the cases rose very fast. So that can be said, but something that is not even present in the passage cannot be put in the Pressy. So please make sure that you do not add anything on your own. Everything should be based on whatever has been discussed in the passage itself. Do not reuse text. I've reiterated that many times now, that you cannot copy and paste text as it is from the sentences from the passage, because it will be caught and you will be losing marks. And the best way is to use synonyms to present the sentence in your own words. So use synonymous words, right? If they said money, you said financial aid. If they said provide, you said aided, or let's say named, or let's say presented. So you use synonyms to present or to make it original. So these are some key points to remember when you are framing a Pressy, right? Structure is very important in a Pressy. Title with one paragraph. Then copying and pasting is very crucial, because that will lead to deduction of marks. Word limit is very important. If you exceed word limit, it will lead to deduction of marks. Then then if you are presenting the Pressy originally or not, that is very important. So if you just keep on cutting and collating and joining sentences from the passage, that will be considered a poor Pressy, right? अगर पैसेज ही क्रिटिकल, जैसा पैसेज में है पंकज वैसा ही रखना है आपने, जैसा ऑथर ने वहाँ पे बोला है. अगर उसने बोला है, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ द ऑथर हैज सेड that the Western pace of life has influenced all spheres of the world, and it has bad impacts. It has had bad impacts on developing economies, right? So if let's say he was criticizing it, I'll also criticize it in the Pressy, that the Western civilization is not up to the mark and it has created problems around the globe. Right. So I will also say the same thing. So, but I cannot say, but at the same time, the Western civilization is also good in many ways. So whatever has been conveyed in the passage is to be conveyed by you as in the notion of the author. You have to present it in your own notion, but the backdrop should be same. You cannot add or you cannot modify anything on your own. That is what you have to understand, Pankaj. Got it? So these are the important key points, do's and don'ts of a Pressy. Now I will discuss with you what is the difference between a Pressy and a summary, guys. Please note this down so that it is clear to you. Now before reading out whatever I have given, I'll try to put it in very simple terms. See guys, what is a Pressy and what is a summary? If you say that let's say the original passage is the human body. I'm just trying to give you an example. Let's say if the original passage is the human body, right? So if passage is the human body, then skeleton would be the summary, whereas soul would be Pressy. Now, what is the difference between skeleton and soul here? See, the original body is human body, right? I have to bring it down to 1/3. So there are two ways. One is I can bring it down sequentially, like, highlighting all the points, like skeleton. This is the skull, that's the shoulder blade, this is the rib cage, that's the torso. These are the limbs. So when you highlight all the points one by one, that is a summary. But soul is the core point, the only inherent, the meaningful point of that passage. So that is called a Pressy. So in simple terms, that is the difference between a Pressy and a summary. Both will be highlighting the same thing, right? The whole body, but in different ways. Summary will be presenting it in a different way. Pressy, on the other hand, will be presenting it in a different way. That is the difference, right? Otherwise, it is almost similar. So let's read now about Pressy. A Pressy is a small miniature of any piece of writing which provides the absolute main point of that writing. This is what you have to understand. So a small miniature of any piece of writing which provides the absolute main point of that writing or article can be defined as a Pressy. It must consist of an appropriate heading, that is title, and it should also maintain the order of the original passage, original piece. That means it should be in the same presentation, same way as it is presented by the author. The essential points are usually mentioned here in Pressy. The essential points are mentioned. The tone of the speech used is the same throughout the read. It should be third form in a third person perspective. Third form, it should be in a third person perspective. And in Pressy, the conclusion is a must. You have to give a conclusion at the end, which will justify the other main points described. So that is what we call a Pressy. But on the other hand, the summary can be described as a brief of all the recorded points in any article. This is the basic difference, guys. See, Pressy is a small miniature which provides the absolute main point of that writing, whereas summary is a brief of all the recorded points in an article. That is the difference. So that is why I said, that's why I gave the example of a skeleton and a soul, right? So summary is brief of all the recorded points, right? Whereas Pressy is the inherent core, the soul of the whole passage, right? So let's read further. The summary can be described as a brief of all the recorded points in any article. Any passage or article with a shortened variation depicts a summary. So it's a shortened variation of an article. That is what we call a summary, where the headline is necessarily not so important, where title is not very important. The not only headline but also the order needs not to be maintained. So you need not maintain the order of the presentation of the points, covering all the important points. So your aim is to cover all the important points. What order you follow, that is not important. The tone used in summary varies and necessarily is not needed to be in order. That means it's not necessarily to be in the same form as it is in the passage. And the summary can also skip the conclusion and mean the same. So when I highlight, the key points one by one, this, that is a summary. Whereas when I put all the important points and when I collate them and present them originally in paragraph, like a short story. So Pressy is like a short story where you discuss the whole passage in your own words, right? So that is the definition of a Pressy, guys, and that is the difference. So Pressy, what are the key points and what are the differences between a Pressy? Pressy must have a title, right? It is a small replica of the article. No need for maintaining the order. It contains main or essential points. The same tone is used throughout. The main idea has to be extracted and it contains a conclusion as well. Whereas summary, a heading is not required. It is a brief description of the article. The order is maintained here. It covers all the important points. It is expressed in terms of reader's own words. The ideas are already extracted in the shortest form possible, and not every time conclusion is necessary in a summary. So basically Pressy is an organic paragraph which has to be made by the reader, by you basically in the exam, and you have to create an organic paragraph where you do not copy and paste anything. You create your own understanding, your own comprehension, right? And when it is put in words within a specific word limit covering all the key all the highlights of the passage is called a Pressy. I think I have reiterated, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. Let's now try to solve a passage and let's see what could be a sample Pressy, so that you practically understand how to frame a Pressy. Then I'll show you a bad Pressy and a good Pressy, and then I'll give you a homework today as well, right? All right, guys, and I'll check that homework next week on Monday. So all of you who watch this session, you have to make a Pressy so that next week on Monday when I come back with with live discussion of these answers, I want all of you to give your sample solution to me so that we can understand what we are doing here, right? So let's try to solve this passage. Okay, let's try to make a Pressy. So let's go, guys. Nearly 6 decades ago, that means 60 years ago, a professor in a Walt Disney comedy bequeathed immortality to a mental failing that has been a recurring cause of red faces. So basically, a professor in Walt Disney comedy, there's a comedy movie. He bequeathed immortality, usko amar bana diya. He basically made it a very famous movie to a mental failing. I think he's talking about Charlie Chaplin, right? Mental failing that has been a recurring cause of red faces. Mental failing, that means you are failing at something. The professor was bright and brainy, but so single-mindedly focused on high matters of science that he could never remember the more mundane, the small little things asides of life, including his forthcoming wedding. So this was a comedy movie where the professor was very bright, but he was so single-mindedly focused on matters of his science that he could not remember little things, mundane things of his life, including his wedding. He forgot his wedding. The absent-minded professor may have been a laugh riot, but absent-mindedness is no laughing matter. This is how you open the stage, by creating a backdrop. Now the passage begins. At work, if you misplace a file or stand up to make a presentation only to realize that your notes are in the drawer at home, you will be deemed slack and clearly unfit for what HR department describes as higher responsibilities. Yes. So at work, if you misplace or if you forget something, you will be considered slack. That means you are not you're fit for work, and you cannot remember anything of use, of prominence. So you will be considered a slack employee. Now present day society, with its fetish about practical, fetish means the craziness about practical efficiency, does not readily forgive us. So yes, I mean, they do not forgive people who forget. So present day society is so fast that they worry about practical efficiency so much that they do not forgive us. Who us? The serial forgetters. That means people who forget small little things, right? Over and over again. Word goes around that our memory has more holes than a mosquito net. Okay, so there is a good saying that our memory has more holes than a mosquito net. That means things can go through. We may forget things very easily. The extended family will then stand on the sidelines and snigger while the spouse, out of wifely concern, suggests consulting the friendly neighborhood neurologist, just in case it's an early warning sign of dementia. Relax, it's nothing of that sort. Okay, so they're saying present day society will criticize you, and after that your extended family, that means family members, will also make fun of you, and where your wife out of concern will tell you to get some professional help for your forgetfulness. That is how the society has become. So that is what they have said up till now. I'm highlighting all the key points as I'm going along, and that is what you should also do, guys. As you go along, highlight the key points so that you remember what you read. Now let's read further. Listen to the experts. George Grossberg, director of geriatric psychology at St. Louis University of Medicine, says someone who misplaces his keys, gets frustrated and runs around looking for them is just absent-minded. Yes, so people are very commonly absent-minded. On the other hand, a person who misplaces his or her keys doesn't know that they are lost, and after they are found forgets what they are for. That's a cause for concern. Yes, so basically, if you just misplace your keys, if you misplace something, if you forget something, that is okay, right? But if you keep on forgetting and if you keep on saying and doing the same thing over and over again, now that is a cause of concern. So if you haven't gone that far, you are in safe territory. That means that's not an issue. We of the forgetful fraternity also have historian come philosopher Yuval Noah Harari on our side. So we have the famous philosopher Yuval Noah Harari. He is also a forgetful type of person. So he says that human mind is not designed to think like a filing cabinet. A normal mind does not move like a regiment on parade, rather like a Jasprit Bumrah run-up Our line of thought hops, stops and pops as memory surrenders to our poet-like imagination. Okay, so now he's making fun that our memory doesn't work like a regiment on a parade. It runs and jumps and bumps like Jasprit Bumrah on a run-up. There are many ways of polishing a rusty memory. These range from regular medication to declutter your top story to eating brain food like almonds every morning. Yes, so there are many ways to improve to basically to improve your memory. So if you tend to forget the names of people you have met, you are told to repeat the name under your breath till your mind has got it pat. So if you forget someone's name, you just keep on remembering and under your breath, इसका नाम क्या था, हम बोलते हैं ना, राकेश था, रमेश था, रुपेश था, क्या था. So you remember it. More discretion is advised. I mean, you keep to yourself. Suppose you are repeating Roop Rani, make sure your wife is not within earshot. So he's making fun again. So if you forget someone's name, you can remember it. Just keep on trying. Right. So if none of this works, do not despair. Not everything in this world is of lasting significance. Why carry around the burden of unpleasant remembrances or overhang of guilt? As Khalil Gibran said, forgetfulness is a form of freedom. So yes, you tend to forget small little silly things, and it is a sort of, for example, sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? So sometimes forgetfulness is a form of freedom. So this is what they have conveyed through this passage. Now, if I ask you to write a Pressy of this within 120 words or 150 words, what would you do? So now let's see a sample Pressy for this. So the title given to this is The Curious Case of Forgetfulness. See, this highlights the whole point. The curious case of forgetfulness. What is the what is happening, or what is going on, what people understand from forgetfulness. So let's see what. So this is what your Pressy should look like. Title on the top, one paragraph, everything in one paragraph within the word limit. So let's read how to highlight the key points and how to write a Pressy. So start with the Pressy. A popular character in a Walt Disney film puts forward the issue of forgetfulness in a funny manner. So this is how he began. So a popular character in a Walt Disney film puts forward the issue of forgetfulness in a funny manner. However, see, this is how you connect your sentences using conjunctions. However, this forgetfulness can cause great professional damage to a person at the workplace, right? The present day society does not tolerate forgetfulness as an ailment and recommends one seeks professional help. See how he presented couple of sentences into one. The present day, see, it was written, the present day society does not does not leave you or does not bother, right? But he said does not tolerate forgetfulness as an ailment and recommends one seeks professional help. Experts from the field of medicine attribute forgetfulness as not serious if it is a case of absent-mindedness. So experts from the field of medicine attribute forgetfulness as not serious if it is a case of absent-mindedness, but warn against the extreme ones. Philosophers have agreed that human mind is not designed like a filing cabinet for memories. There are many methods to improve one's memory, ranging from meditation, eating almonds, and decluttering one's mind. However, one must not have guilt over the issue of forgetfulness, as there is not much of great significance in the world. So if I were to write a 120-word Pressy for that passage, this is what I call a Pressy. Nothing has been replicated from the passage. Structure is followed. There is no grammatical or contextual mistake. Everything is conveyed in the order of the original passage, and nothing has been added from outside the premises of the passage. It is exact rephrasing of the original passage, but in your own words. So I hope this this helps you to understand how you need to frame a Pressy. Keep the key points, present them in your own words, make an organic paragraph using conjunctions. If you do that, follow the word limit, follow the structure, you can score very good marks in a Pressy. You don't need to be Shakespeare to be scoring decent marks. You can just write it in simple words and you can score well in a Pressy, guys. Right. Now I'll also show you some examples of good Pressys and bad Pressys. Right. So I have a passage with me. I'll read it out and then I'll show you what we call a bad Pressy and what we call a good Pressy. Right. So let's read a technical passage. Now, previous passage was a general passage which you can read anywhere. Right. Let's read a passage based on your finance and economy. Right. And how do we make a Pressy out of that? So let's go, guys. Financial inclusion is not just about, give me a second, guys. Financial inclusion is not just about access to financial products. So he is saying financial inclusion. That means when you include everyone in the process of betterment of financial status. So financial inclusion is not just about access to financial products, both savings and borrowings. It's also about safe, easy, and low cost access to cash flow management system, and that includes a payment system that allows you to move money around safely and at a low cost. So that is called financial inclusion. Financial inclusion has been an important development agenda for India. Though financial inclusion is necessary, it is definitely not a sufficient condition for economic growth. So though financial inclusion is a necessary step, but it is not only sufficient condition for economic growth. The current decade is the watershed period for financial inclusion in India, as it marks a paradigm shift in the approaches of banks and financial institutions, thanks to the regulatory push and the demand pull. Currently, India's banking network comprises of 1.1 lakh branches and an ATM network of 1.6 lakh. Of these 44,000 branches, that is 38.2%, and 23,000 ATMs, that is 14%, are in rural areas, and the remaining are in semi-urban and metropolitan areas. So that means only 40% of the branches and only 15% of the ATMs are in rural areas. Rest 60% and 75% or 85% of these are respectively in semi-urban and urban areas. The number of banking outlets in villages, which was 67,000 during this crossed 3.8 lakh in March 2014. Nearly 12,748 rural branches were opened during this period, against a reduction of about 1,300 rural branches in the last 2 decades. That means we have seen an improvement in the number of outlets of banks in rural areas in the last decade. Let's read further. Despite the formidable physical outreach and the rural footprint of banks, 44% of Indians lack access to a savings account. Now that is a dire problem, that is a dire issue to handle. Obviously, there have been some major challenges in achieving financial inclusion. Some major challenges like inclusion in rural areas in this large country. Underdeveloped infrastructure makes it hard for banks to operate in many rural areas. The opportunity cost for a rural customer braving a long trek to the branch over bad road remains a major deterrent to operating a bank account. So these are two issues: underdeveloped infrastructure and transportation. Second is illiteracy and language differences act as barriers, and does banks failure to offer products relevant to rural customers. So that is another point. For banks, a host of problems such as small transaction size, higher credit risks, make it even more difficult to serve the rural market. Now, despite such challenges, rural banking is far ahead of where it was in the first decade of the century. The RBI has encouraged expansion in rural areas through its financial inclusion plan by granting urban branch licenses on the basis of number of rural branches opened. Very good. So that is one step taken by RBI to do that, to encourage expansion in rural areas. Now, the success of financial inclusion depends largely on developing products, solutions that directly address the specific needs of rural people. That is true. The financially excluded consumers have certain unique characteristics, such as low financial literacy, low cyclic income, minimal collateral, lack of credit history, absence of formal and verifiable identity, illiteracy. Now, these need to be taken care of while designing these products and services for them. Hence, the products and services to be offered should not be stripped down versions of products and services originally created for the more affluent, that means urban consumers, consumer segments, and should instead holistically address the expectations of financially excluded consumers. That is what he was conveying, that financial inclusion does not mean that money is gained by only elite class. It has to be spread around the poor people, and for that branches need to be opened, financial literacy needs to be pushed, and for that RBI has done a lot, but there are many challenges. At the last, he says that the key point is to create those products which are not stripped down versions of the original product. They are to be customized for rural consumers. So that is what he is trying to convey. Now let's look at some sample Pressys for the same. I'll show you a bad Pressy, then I'll show you a good Pressy for the same passage, and then you can understand the difference. Got it? So this is what I call a bad Pressy. First of all, there is no title, so he will lose 3 marks, 4 marks for forgetting to write a title. So guys, title is a must in a Pressy. First of all, there is no title. Got it? Second, the structure is not followed. He has written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. As I told you, Pressy is only written in one paragraph. If you don't follow that, that is going to lead to deduction of marks. Third, inclusion of data. As I told you, you should not include any specific information. 44% of this, 38% of that. That is not to be included in a Pressy. You have to keep only the core. Fourth point, grammatical and punctuation mistakes. If this happens, this is definitely going to lead to deduction of marks. For example, let's read it. Financial inclusion is not all about to access saving and borrowing. It also includes easy, safe, low-cost access to financial product and depends upon on payment system. This is copying and pasting, replication. This is also going to lead to deduction of marks. Now, financial inclusion is a necessary element for development for India. The current decade has made a paradigm shift in approach of banks and financial institutions due to regulatory push and demand pull. Again, replication. 38% branches. See, can you feel the jerk, guys? There is no connection between the sentences. Up till now, I'm not able to understand what is the original passage, conveying in this. So I'm not able to get. This is what happens when you do not connect the sentences properly. You will feel a jerk when you read the next sentence, and this should not happen in an organic Pressy. So that is why I said you have to keep out the important points and then frame them originally, as if you are framing an original paragraph, a short story on your own. This branches ATMs are operating in India despite huge bank infrastructure. 44% lack this. Again, copying and pasting. Due to higher credit risk, small transactions, illiteracy, language difference make it difficult for bank to operate. RBI encourages expanding in rural areas by granting urban branch licenses based on number of rural branches. The financial inclusion depends on financial product that is suitable for rural people. It should not be striped down. See, this is what I call a poor Pressy. Grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes, contextual mistakes, structural mistakes, then copying, pasting, doing all the wrong things that a student can do in a Pressy. And this is what we have been taught to do, to collate the points, to break down the important points in the sentences and then put them together without even thinking if does it make sense or not. So this is what I call a bad Pressy. Now let's look at a good Pressy. Right, so you give it a title, Financial Inclusion in India post 2010. Right, so let's read what has been said. Though financial inclusion is a significant growth program and is deemed necessary condition, it alone cannot be enough for economic development. That was conveyed in the first paragraph, right? So you convey everything in your own way. Right, so though financial inclusion is a significant growth program and is deemed a necessary condition, it alone cannot be enough for economic development. Post 2010, financial inclusion has resulted in a drastic change in approach by banks and financial institutions, catalyzed by a regulatory push and a demand pull. Consequently, the banking network has risen rapidly during this period. However, a little less than half of Indians are yet to own bank accounts, owing to nascent infrastructure, illiteracy, language barriers, and irrelevant banking products. Supply side issues include small transaction size, high credit risks. In spite of this, rural banking has managed to flourish, aided by the RBI through its financial inclusion plan and rural reach incentives. This success depends mainly on customization of bank products and services according to the unique demographics of the financially excluded, while inclusively catering to expectations. So this is what I call a good Pressy. This is how you convey the inferred meaning of the passage. So guys, as I told you, you have to convey the purpose of the author to write that passage in your own words. Remember, this was the purpose of the author to write the passage. He wanted to highlight that financial inclusion is good, but it is not the only condition required for growth. We have seen growth in number of branches, banks, but it is not enough. People are still reluctant for different reasons, and the main reason is stripped down versions of the original products. There should be customization of products according to the demographics of the rural people. So that was the key point of the passage, and that has to be discussed in a Pressy. So I hope now it is clear to you what a good Pressy should look like in your paper. follow the pattern, do not copy paste, follow the structure, give it a title, follow the word limit, do not copy paste anything, avoid replication, do not add anything on your own, but make it an original paragraph, so that there is so that the evaluator can understand you have comprehended and you have presented it in your own words. And that is the requirement, that is the psychology of this question, guys. What do they want to see from this Pressy writing question? They want to see if you can comprehend the passage, if you can present it in your own original words, and if you can stick to the word limit. Can you bind it down, condense it to keep and distinguish between the important and the unimportant points? So all that is tested through your Pressy writing, and that is what you need to follow now. Got it, guys? So that was all about your Pressy writing. Now this is your homework passage. Now you can take a screenshot of the screen if you want now, and I'll give you, or if you want, I'll also provide you the PDF of this session. You can get the PDF of this session on our Telegram group. The link for our Telegram channel, the Telegram group, has been given in the description of the video. So you can scroll down on the description and you can join our Telegram group and get all these PDFs for free. Right. So this was the first page of your passage. This is, I think the passage is about mobile addiction, right? How people these days are addicted to mobile, and this was given in one of the previous year exams. So I would like you to make a Pressy out of this passage, and I would love to see how you how you create a Pressy. And I'll see, and I'll check your and I'll see basically what you write on Monday. So Monday we have a live discussion session where I'll be discussing questions and answers with you live right now. I mean right there, right on this, and that would be really helpful to make you understand what should you do in your exam, during the exam, right? So don't miss that session, guys. So that was your homework passage. This is the third last paragraph of your passage. So if you're taking screenshots, you can take screenshots. Otherwise you can also get the PDFs from the Telegram channel. Got it? So that was it for Pressy writing, guys. Any doubts, any queries, please feel free to ask. You are more than welcome to ask me anything that you may any doubt that you may or may not have, or anything that may still confuse you, anything that you still wish to ask, please feel free to ask. And before we end the session, I would like to inform you about the one-time sale that we have launched. Today is the last day of this sale, and we are offering flat 48% discount on all our combo courses, that are RBI, NABARD, SEBI and PFRDA courses, both gold and silver combos. And the coupon code is one time. So if you're thinking of preparing for any of these exams, I think it is high time you started doing it, right? So guys, any doubts, any queries, if you wish to ask, please feel free to ask. And if you wish to contact us for anything else, you can call us on this number during the office hours, that is 8146207241, or you can also drop us an email at hello@edutap.co.in. Important links for our courses have also been added to the description of the video. You can also go check out our courses, which will be very beneficial for your endeavors, for your preparation for your future. No doubts, no queries. Pankaj, Rohit, lovely. Anything you wish to ask or anything you wish to suggest, you can kindly do so. Please do share your feedback with us. They are very helpful to us. They let us know how you feel and what you feel about our content. And if you have anything to add or any suggestion, please, you can do so. Yes, guys, any doubts, any queries? No? All right. Chalo, then let's call it a day, right? And let's see, how you perform and how you make a Pressy out of the homework passage that I gave you. And I'll see you on Monday now, same time, 5 p.m. And we'll be taking live session. We'll be discussing live questions here, and I'll be helping you with solving and presentation of your, of your sessions, of your answers in that session. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all the very best for your preparation and your journey ahead. Till then, Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you on Monday.